Welcome into another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Lots for your consumption this week, including a chili cook-off, help for newcomers to Canada and to the Barrie area in making their business dreams come true. We get a preview of the Barrie Film Festival's Real Stories program and Environment Canada's prediction for spring. It may be time for the groundhog to retire. And we have more, but first, with the population of Innisfil expected to double in the next 30 years, Town Council wants to make sure there's room for them without upsetting the rural landscape too much, so the plan is to build an orbit, an all-inclusive community with a proposed GO station at its core. Barrie 360's Ian MacLeanan sat down with Innisfil's Director of Planning and Growth, Andrea Lee, to get the lay of the land.
The orbit, in a nutshell, there's lots to talk about, but if you can compress it, if someone came up to you and said, what's this orbit project I hear about in the town of Innisfil? What is it?
So essentially, it's a transit-oriented community, and what that focuses on in a proposed GO station that'll be located in Alcona, and then around that GO station, there'll be a higher density housing and public spaces, really focusing on a complete community that doesn't currently exist in that area.
Some people have said it seems to be overwhelming or too much. Some have said it's not enough. At first blush, when I looked at it, I thought, well, it looks very Jetsons-like, but very compressed, compact, without that sprawl that we've seen in places like in the GTA, for example. Is that what you're trying to achieve?
That's exactly it. Really, we're trying to intensify and have a higher density in a specific community, and that'll allow some of our other outside areas to remain more agricultural, more rural. And that was really the focus of council when they made this decision a number of years ago, is knowing that Innisfil is going to continue to grow and, in fact, double our population in the next 30 years, making sure that we still have what people value in that area, those rural spaces or those walkable areas.
So compact, compressed, and build up. Like obviously the Ontario government wants that build up. They don't want that sprawl. That's the mandate from the province anyway. That's
correct. So this is a much more compact area. It's about an 800-acre site. And within that, you're going to see, over the life cycle, so about 50 years, you're seeing almost 100,000 population. So that's a large population in a much smaller area and discourages that urban sprawl taking up all of the agricultural land.
Is it critical for the town to emphasize maybe the point that this isn't an overnight project, that, let's be frank, I'm not going to be around when this final design is done and it's all built up. What is the timeline and why is it spread out so much?
Yeah, so it is a very long-term project. And so we're going through what's called a secondary plan process right now. And that's laying out the vision, the policies, so that as this project develops over that, 50, 60-year timeline, we know what the plan will look like at the full, what we call full build-out of it. But it is, the first phase really is the next 30 years to 2051, and that's the area that's very much focused right around the proposed GO station.
And what is what sort of development will be, on that property? What is there something unique about it that we don't have already in the town of Innisfil?
It is going to be phased, so that what we call the transit-oriented community 1 and 2, which are sort of the areas right around the proposed GO station, are going to be a much higher density. So you are going to see, upwards of 20 or more story high-rise condominium-type buildings. So that's not something you currently see in Innisfil or any of the surrounding areas. It is a little bit more like what you see in some of the Barrie area. But as you sort of spread beyond that area around the GO station, then you're going to see sort of a medium density. So not single detached dwellings, townhouses, low-rise, four-story type. So you are going to see a mix of housing, but definitely at a higher density than we currently see.
Working with planners and the developers, is there anything that the town is looking at saying, oh, they've done it this way, and maybe in Europe or elsewhere in North America? Are there examples that you can grab from?
There are obviously a number of GO stations and a number of what they call these transit-oriented communities. They exist throughout the GTA. There are some models in the GTA, but really we recognize Innisfil is not the GTA. We don't want to be the GTA. So it's finding that balance between those more urbanized centers, Vaughan, Markham, Park Lawn's one example of one of these transit-oriented communities, taking some of the features there, but but bringing in a little bit more of that rural feel to this area. So ensuring that as it develops, it has a lot more, it's walkable. It's got green spaces.
Yeah, there's been a lot of focus on, you'll have a vehicle, maybe hopefully only one, but where you get to go, where you need to go, you could walk it or bike it or wherever.
Right. And that's having that more concentrated density allows you to be in close proximity to the GO station or the grocery store or the convenience store. The intent longer term is to have all of that within the community. And that's why it's called a complete community, so that you can walk to the park, you can walk to the GO station, and ideally not have to use your vehicle. There'll be bike trails. So all of that would be factored into that full build out.
The public have made suggestions, or some like it but want some tweaks. And will that be something that will happen? Where's the final rubber stamp? When do you get to that point where, okay, we know what we want, you've made your points, and here we go?
Right. And that was the purpose of last week's public meeting. It's been a long journey over the past year to get public input. We got a lot of really good input last week. We're still continuing to receive comments. So the staff and the consulting team are reviewing all of that information, and we're looking to bring that back to council later this spring, likely May, but it could be later than that, with updates based on what we heard, and a staff report that'll explain the comments we heard and how we've been able to address them or not address them.
And what does final approval look like, or when will it come to that sort of stage? Council
does make a decision, and this is, in planning terms, this is an official plan change that happens through this secondary plan. At this stage, the County of Simcoe is still the approval authority for that decision. So when council makes a decision, it goes to the county, and that's typically a 3 to 6 month process after the town decision. So the final decision on this likely wouldn't be in place until closer to the end of the year.
And a shovel in the ground for even first phase?
And that's, certainly there's a lot of questions about that. The first phase will include the proposed GO station, but what we've sort of indicated, we don't have decisions from Metrolinx or the developer on those timelines. They are market-based, obviously, but we're hoping within a couple of years that those shovels are in the ground. You will see earthworks, some pre-servicing. There's a lot of work to be done. So there will start to be construction, but shovels in the ground for the actual condominiums and the GO station, probably a couple of years.
If you're looking for more on the orbit, the town of Innisfil has things laid out nicely on its website, innisfil.ca. Tough enough coming to a new country, getting established and carving out a new way of life. Tougher still if you're trying to set up shop, establish a business. Georgian College offering some help next week through its Henry Bernick Entrepreneurship Centre, its second Xcelerate Now program. Cecilia Doucette is the coordinator. Cecilia, how did this come about?
We had this dream a couple of years ago. We noticed that there was gaps in the business ecosystem for immigrants and newcomers, and them accessing the resources available in the community already when you are trying to run a business or start a business in a country that is not your home. So we saw those needs, we saw those gaps, and with the partnership and collaboration and support of community members like the County of Simcoe, we applied to an in-market application, and we got the funding to start this series of events and program, and that's been absolutely amazing, having the support of our partners and community leaders. Xcelerating Now basically is helping and is focusing on helping newcomers, international students, immigrants and refugees, entrepreneurs who want to start, grow, or scale a business in Canada.
You have newcomers unfamiliar with the city, unfamiliar with the laws and whatnot, so they need that extra leg up, don't they?
Absolutely. And when you start a business, it's tricky. It's hard. It's not impossible, but it can be difficult. And having to do that abroad in a language that is not your language, and not knowing anybody, like you're trying to start a home away from home. So having to do that and start a business, it can be difficult. So having the community right there, the resources right there for you, that's what you need. You need those connections. You need that networking. You need that support. And that's what we're trying to achieve.
And great too that you're in an environment with other like-minded people who are trying to achieve the same thing you are. You can bounce ideas off of each other. You can be there to support each other as you're moving forward.
Absolutely. This, part of our dream, it's helping newcomers with their businesses, but at the same time, strengthening those partnerships that we already have in the business ecosystem with all the amazing partners that are out there. So it's not just, we want to focus on one organization doing one thing. I think we can all come together, and we're already doing it. We're just focusing on new members of the community. So having those partnerships is really important.
All right. So if I sign up for the program and I show up, what am I going to be treated to while I'm there?
Really, really good attention and service and all of our support. You will enroll in the Henry Bernick Entrepreneurship Centre. That's because that's where I'm working. That will be like your first step. You will have to fill an intake form to be part of the HBEC, and then we will help you through from there. It's just newcomers have different needs. So now with this position, with having this new program, we can address those needs in the resources that are already there.
And you have some panelists who are coming in with some expert advice?
For this event, yes, absolutely. We have 3 panelists with 1 expert. And the expert is John Bailey. She is the owner of Ovation Speakers. She's just absolutely amazing in terms of how to present yourself, how to talk to people, how to sell yourself, how to be confident, because that's where everything starts, especially if you're doing it, like I mentioned, in another language, like having that confidence in selling your product or service is really hard.
That's probably the key, isn't it? Gaining the confidence so that you can move forward with everything else that you learn. Absolutely,
absolutely. So she's an amazing expert that we're going to have part of the panel. And then is Miguel Abascal. He is the owner of Unstoppable Me Rocks. And this is the company that mentors newcomers on how to find the job in their new community. And he's doing amazing work with immigrants as well. So he's going to be talking about his story. Rosa Diaz, she's the owner of Roadmap to Canada. It's an immigration consultant. And she's been having her business for quite a while now, but she's going to be sharing her story about how she started in another country, and how she's been so successful now. And we also have Paulo Cardoso. He's from Brazil. And he is the chief partnership officer from JKR public agency in Brazil, and now they have a office in Canada. So it's inspiring stories. Is immigrants that they were in their shoes, attendees' shoes, my shoes, because I'm also an immigrant as well. One day, and they succeeded. They had bumps, they overcome those bumps, and they keep fighting, fighting for that dream,
And that's an important thing to remember too. This is not going to be a smooth road all the way through. There are going to be bumps, and these are people who can help you get over those bumps easier.
Absolutely. Just that one opportunity that somebody gives you your hand, opens that door, helps you with that first step is what we need. And that's what we're aiming with the program.
Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for coming in and giving us some insight and all the parameters that people need to know to get this started.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Again, Xcelerate Now happens March 30th at Sandbox Center downtown. You can register online through Eventbrite or on Facebook and Instagram at Xcelerate Now. It's a 2-hour program with a social hour afterward to continue your networking. Barrie Colts' trot to the playoffs continues. Jockeying for playoff position, Barrie 360's Will Conkin and Colts broadcaster Gene Pereira ponder what the starting gate is going to look like and marvel at that trusty steed they have on the blue line.
Gene, overall another great week for the Colts. Had a tough 6-5 loss in a shootout to the Steelheads, notched a 5-4 OT win against Owen Sound, and then cruised past the Niagara Ice Dogs 11-4. Let me say that again, 11-4. Big takeaway I'd say is Brant Clark is cementing himself even more as a top-tier player, got named OHL Player of the Week. Gene, what can't the guy do?
I don't know if there's not much he can do. I mean, you look at, 30 games, he has just absolutely dominated. And, he wanted to come back to the league. He wanted to be the best player in the league. And it's hard to make that argument that he hasn't been, and even in only 30 games. And again, his 5-point night against Niagara, he's just kind of toying around with the Ice Dogs out there. I think he easily could have had more points. And he's just that gifted a player. And I think the thing that really stands out about Brett to me as well is, this is a guy that obviously can dominate out there, but he uses his teammates. And, when he sees a guy open, he's going to give him the puck, feed him for the better scoring situation. And I think his teammates love that about him, and that unselfishness. And, he's cruising in on a couple of things. He's already become the all-time leading defensive scorer in Colts franchise history. Now he's moving in on another with 3 games left. He's 2 goals behind the record, the single-season record of 23 goals by a defenseman set by Aaron Ekblad and going way back Andrew Marshall. So he's just a couple of goals off that pace, and you can guarantee that'll be something he'll be shooting for.
Yeah, do you really see him as a top defenseman in the league?
Yeah, I think, when it comes to voting for this league, it's hard not to vote from the top defenseman. And I would even think you'd have to consider him for the most outstanding player. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to hurt him that he got into just 30 games, that he came back after. I think they're going to go with someone that was around for most of the season. But look, this guy is definitely in the conversation. He's been that dominant. And when you watch him night in and night out, I mean, he's just a dominant player offensively. He moves the puck well. He carries the puck well. At times, he looks like an additional forward. I think, he's wanted to work on his all-around game, and I think there's still a development process there, but it's coming. And, when you watch his ability, he's a guy that, and there's few guys that can do this, that if you really need a goal, you got to get him out there on the ice, and, he can almost make it happen individually. But like I said, he's got teammates in Cardwell and Xcelerating and all these other teammates that can put the puck in the net. We saw that in the overtime win against Owen Sound on Friday night when Clark set up on a beauty individual pass to Xcelerating, who kind of threw it over to Cardwell for the one-timer for the overtime winner. And that's just how special a player he is.
And then looking at the final stretch of the regular season for the club, Sudbury comes to town on Thursday, then the Colts hit the road Friday in Kingston, and their final game on Saturday against the OHL's top team in Ottawa. For the Colts, is it just finish the regular season healthy for the group?
Yeah, I think healthy. Obviously, they want to go in on a good note. You always want to kind of, not have to flip the switch and turn your game. Obviously, I think North Bay, 4 points back in North Bay. It's pretty safe to say that with 3 games remaining, North Bay is going to win the Central Division title. It would take North Bay losing all 3 and Barrie winning all 3. And North Bay is just too good a hockey club for that to happen. But for the Colts, obviously, the focus now becomes, like it's been for a while, you got to take care of your own games. And it starts Thursday with Sudbury. And, another interesting game. Sudbury tried to send a message last time the 2 teams met, a possible first-round opponent. They went after Clark. They were trying to be physical, trying to send a message. And it'll be interesting to see what develops in that contest. And then the Colts close out the year on the road Friday night against the Kingston team that's fighting for its playoff lives. That'll really need that win. And then Saturday afternoon in Ottawa, the 67s have clinched first overall. And it'll be interesting to see if they kind of start a full lineup. If actually both teams start a full lineup, maybe they rest some players. But I think without you always want to be going into the playoffs on a positive note. You don't want to kind of be searching for your game heading into a big part of the season.
Yeah, Gene, you were saying off air that it's a bit of a toss-up who might be the Colts' first-round opponent.
Yeah, it's crazy. 5 points separate 4 teams right now. Barrie's going to if they finish third, which it looks appears they're going to play the 6th seed. And right now, that's Mississauga to the point ahead of Sudbury. But there's 3 games left. Hamilton is 2 points ahead of Mississauga, but they only have 2 games remaining. And then you got Peterborough, that's 4 points ahead with 3 games remaining. So I think it's going to be, I don't know. It's just, I think it's going to go right down to the final day here in determining who they're going to meet. And obviously, each of these teams present different challenges. They've all played well at times down the stretch. We saw Mississauga beat Barrie last week, and then, of course, Sudbury always, even though Barrie's kind of carried that series, they've all been fairly close hockey games. And then Hamilton beat Barrie pretty decisively here a couple of weeks ago, the last time they were here. So they all present different challenges, but that's the fun part about this time of year, the scoreboard watching and all the different scenarios. Just when you think something's going to happen, it's someone loses a game that you don't expect or wins a game. And like I said, but I think it's definitely, I think if you're looking right now, Hamilton, Mississauga, or Sudbury, one of those teams is going to be Barrie's first round opponent.
Well, it will be really interesting to see what happens. Thanks again, Gene. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Will.
What Barrie's Talking About is a weekly podcast featuring the best Barrie has to offer and more. We've covered a lot of ground since we began in mid-July, learned how artificial intelligence is being used to keep geese from leaving their calling card on waterfront properties. We got up close and personal with Danny Wagner, drummer for Greta Van Fleet, and looked at some of the pros and cons of owning an electric vehicle. You can get caught up and make it easy to keep up in the future by subscribing to What Barrie's Talking About through any podcast distributor. Still to come on What Barrie's Talking About, what's coming up on this year's Reels program from the Barrie Film Festival, how to say yes to kids' zany requests, including their desire to blow things up. And we set up the spring season for you, including insight from Environment Canada on how they put together their predictions.
Our community rocks.
It's a well-known fact blood transfusion saves lives. It's also a well-known fact that the world relies on voluntary unpaid donations to fill the need for blood. The need for blood never ends. Canadian Blood Services in Barrie is calling on you to help save a life. Please consider donating today. Appointments are mandatory and must be booked in advance. Book today at blood.ca through the Give Blood app or by calling 1-888-2-DONATE.
Our community rocks on Barrie's Rock Station. Rock 95.
You like chili? There's a chili cook-off this weekend in Barrie to support the local Air Cadet Squadron. The Rock 95 morning crew, Craig, Kat, and Brian, had some special guests in to whet their appetites.
We have Daniel Clements in studio, and he is here to talk about Operation Crockpot.
Good morning. Yes, Operation Crockpot.
Which is a chili cook-off.
It is. It's an epic chili cook-off. So, as you guys know, I'm a chef. I work as a chef. One of the other hats I wear is a level officer for our local 102 Barrie Air Cadet Squadron. Mm-hmm. So as a fundraiser this year, our senior cadets really wanted to do something a little different. So I got the opportunity to play some of my other skills into this job too, and we came up with a chili cook-off.
And you brought a couple of the cadets with you.
I did.
Okay, so introduce them.
Here today is our warrant officer for the squadron, Andrew Erb. So he is the top dog in our squadron. And actually my son, Tyler, who is the deputy warrant for the squadron as well. So
Deputy.
And did one of these come up with the idea of the chili cook-off? One of these gentlemen here?
Gentlemen, I believe they did actually come up with a chili cook-off idea
Either
a few
one of them
years
wants
ago.
to say
Yeah,
it.
if you want to come in and say something and brag, you can do so. They're shy.
Yeah, they're like, no, go ahead, Dad.
That's fine. So the chili cook-off I'm very excited about for a reason. I'm part of it.
Yes.
Now, I'm not cooking chili, so don't worry.
Thank God.
Thank God.
No, we're not going to have you cook.
No, I'm judging.
You are, and I'm so thankful for you to come and join us, and we really appreciate the support.
Well, you didn't have to twist my arm.
Hey, you can't go wrong with chili, right?
Right.
So we've actually got 6 local competitors that are all entering pots of chili for us. Some of the names you may know and recognize from downtown Barrie and a few of our local catering companies. So we're excited to get them. Leadbetter Meats was kind enough to jump in and help us sponsor the event and put it all together. And the Army Navy Air Force Club was fantastic in allowing us to come into their venue and help host it for us.
Okay, you are a chef, so this is your professional opinion. What makes a good chili?
That's a really good question.
I know.
And it's so subjective, right? It depends on what kind of chili you're talking about. Do you want classic chili, like a traditional?
Yeah.
Do you like beans or no beans is always the big argument, right? What is it? What do you think, boys? Beans or no beans?
Beans.
Yeah,
Beans.
Yeah, beans.
Good for tuning.
Magical fruit.
So, just to ease my mind, I'm not the only judge, right? It's not all on me.
You won't be the only judge, Greg. You're not the only one.
Nobody trusts you with that responsibility.
What if it's too spicy? Is that an element? You know what I mean? If Craig can't handle it.
We actually considered that in the planning. So I actually have friends at Sheldon Creek Dairy that have jumped on board, and they're helping us build a milk and cookie table.
Craig, you're all set, buddy.
If the peppers are a little too spicy for you, we can always swing on by the milk and cookie table, and Sheldon Creek will help you out.
Yum! How can we get tickets and take part of this?
So tickets are actually going to be available at the door at the Army Navy Air Force Club. Because we have limited capacity in the room, we're kind of cycling people through for tasting. At the top of the hour, we kind of start a new process. But tickets are $15. You get 2 tastes of chili. You get a raffle ticket. We've got all of our cadets at the squadron gathering raffle prizes. They're all building raffle baskets, so they're really excited about that. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, so am I, and I hope I don't disappoint.
Never a disappointment hanging out with you, Craig.
Thanks for taking the time to tell us about it.
We suspect the Ross family will be giving Craig a wide berth around the house this weekend. This is What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. You remember the movie Yes Day a couple of years ago, where a mom and dad give in to their kids' wild requests on a whirlwind day of fun and adventure? Scouts Canada hopes parents will do the same this Friday the 24th. It surveyed kids across the country to find what they wanted to do most. They came back with things like fly an airplane, get close to a lion, and blow things up. Barrie 360's MJ finding out from Scouts Canada Michael Nebesny that you can say yes to that, sort of.
The assumption here is that, where parents can't say no to their kids. And a recent study has shown that kids like to blow things up. Now, obviously, we have to take this with a grain of salt because we want our kids to be safe. But what is a workaround here?
Of course. So the idea isn't that you shouldn't say no to kids. It's about kind of building activities in an age-appropriate way so that kids' ideas can really grow and be nurtured, and you can encourage that kind of leadership. So, for example, if kids want to blow things up, there are many age-appropriate ways that you can do this outside of just, heading down to the fireworks store. This can be, bottle rockets. It can be making like a baking soda vinegar volcano. It can be going and watching a fireworks show. It doesn't have to be just handing the kids the firecrackers and things. The idea we want to nurture is that when kids have an idea, there are ways to test this and there are ways to do this safely, and that's really what Scouts is all about.
There's other things on this list, such as wanting to ride a dirt bike, whereas some kids might be a little too young, say, for something so extreme. What's a workaround for that?
So for riding a dirt bike, this is really kind of, it comes down to what you want to do. So it depends on the age of the kid, of course, but, the first thing every step is going to be safety. So it's looking at what do we feel comfortable doing, what can we do in our own backyard. Maybe it's learning to ride a bike first. Maybe it's going to a dirt biking gym where we can do it inside, like on kind of a firm ground. Maybe it's getting a skateboard or something else instead that we can kind of do some tricks on and learn without really going out into the wilderness and doing something very dangerous where we're going to break limbs.
Now, with this Kids Day for Scouts Canada, have they gotten, I guess, more like fun ideas for parents to do with their kids? Because it's kind of stepping out of the realm. Usually, a lot of parents like to keep things structured, but this is a lot more fun.
Absolutely, it is. So if you head on to scouts.ca, right on the main page, we'll have all of the resources available. So we have lists of activities, how to do them, and lots of resources on how to say yes and kind of prompts. so that you can say yes despite what the cost may be, or despite, the safety concerns, or the amount of effort or time you have available to nurture these ideas. So if you head on to scouts.ca, it's all going to be there right on the main page.
All right. Now, is this the first Yes Day that's been around?
Yeah, it is. So we've actually put out a survey to a lot of our members, and I'm part of the national support team as well. And this is a conversation we've been having, is how do we tailor our program at Scouts to what the youth want to do? So we did put out a survey to a lot of our members, and 55% of them said they wanted to learn to blow stuff up, like you said before. That was really the big thing we wanted to do. More than half wanted to do extreme outdoor things like camping and paddling. Lots of them wanted to fly an airplane or a spaceship. So we want to make sure that our program is both encouraging youth to be leaders, taking their ideas into account and making them feel like they're the ones driving the program, and also making sure that the program is tailored to what they want to do. So this is why Scouts Canada is heading in this direction, is to really listen to our members to ensure that we're engaging them.
For more on how to bring some of your kids' wildest dreams to life, check out the Yes Day page at scouts.ca. Real Stories returns to the Barrie Film Festival March 23rd to March 26th. The series of thought-provoking documentary films, Butterfly in the Sky, tells the story of beloved PBS children's series Reading Rainbow and the challenges its creators faced in cultivating a love of reading through television. Mission Joy explores the unlikely friendship of the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, giving a master class in how to create joy in a world that isn't easy. And there's more. Our Ian MacLeanan dims the lights with Barrie Film Festival director Claudine Benoit.
So Real Stories is coming up beginning on March 23rd. Now, we're going back to 2005 when this began. What was the sort of trigger to launch this type of festival?
Oh, it was a different time for sure. I remember we were moving our fall festival to February, and so we thought, well, we need an event in October, and so that's how it started, as a small documentary festival at that time. But then we went, no, we like our fall festival back in the fall festival time slot, so we moved Real Stories to the spring.
These films that are being presented, there's an awareness of social conscience. Is that what you're looking for when you select these films?
Certainly part of it, but we really look for a variety of films. And at the end of the day, it's just, does a film move you, whether it's funny or hard hitting, if it affects you in some way.
And how do you choose these films?
Okay. Well, myself and my programming committee, we all love movies. So there's a lot of research goes into it. We kind of watch what's happening in the film industry, and we watch other festivals. I just search and search and search. And sometimes there's certain directors that I follow, see what they're up to kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so we'll do that as well. And then just watch a lot of movies. And
I was going to say you watch the movie before you select it, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a specific theme each year? Or I was going through the list, and it touches on so many different, from the overdose crisis to sexual violence in India. I mean, there's a wide range. PBS children's documentary?
There is not a specific theme, no. So it's just cinematic discovery, truly. And I also connect with other people I know at other festivals, like Windsor, for example. And if there's a film that I've heard about and I've seen that they've shown, we connect and we talk about it, and then I try to get to see it.
People who are familiar with the festival obviously would come out. How do you draw other people to be a part of this event? They may watch films at home like Netflix, or they go to the movies. How do you draw those people in? What would you encourage them?
You know what? There's nothing like the collective viewing experience. You really do have to support seeing films on the big screen. It has such great impact, and these films, create conversation. And I find a lot of people like to watch them together, and sometimes they'll stay after the film, and they're all talking.
Well, that was my question. Do some people stay after? Is there sometimes an open discussion, or?
Well, this festival. I'm trying to get a guest for one of the films, but we don't have talks particularly coordinated after each of the screenings. It'll depend on whether we get guests or not. And that's always interesting because people can ask somebody who's involved with the film it adds further depth and context to the experience.
Give us maybe we got a long list of films, but say 2 that stand out for you possibly, or that I know that might be a tough question, but
it is, because you know what, they all kind of impacted me in different ways. Like A Bunch of Amateurs, for example. It's about the oldest amateur filmmaking club in Britain. It's actually in the world, but they're in Britain. And it's just a film that kind of touches on your heart. It's a diminishing kind of group. Everything's kind of, the facility's kind of falling apart. And it's a quirky film. But you never get a chance to meet these people otherwise. And that's the great thing about documentary is you're going to learn about things you haven't heard of.
Where are the films screened?
So everything's going to be screened at the 5 Points Theatre, 1 Dunlop Street West. And you can go to our website, barriefilmfestival.ca, and everything's on there from the ticket price. Ticket prices are $12, and all the information is there.
Winter came and went as advertised by Environment Canada. No lengthy periods of extreme cold. The snow came in bunches, then almost disappeared before the next bunch came, and we had some rainy moments. We're joined by David Phillips, Environment Canada's chief climatologist. David, it would seem it's going to take some time for spring to take root this year.
March has really been cold. March is always a fickle month. It can be winter-like or spring-like. And this year, it clearly is winter-like. This time last year in March, we'd already had temperatures of 14 degrees, 20 degrees. I mean, the best we can do this March is 5 degrees, So it really has, when you look out there, you see a lot of snow sitting on the ground, 32 centimeters of snow sitting on the ground. And hey, I always think, don't put away the snow shovel quite yet. From the first day of spring on, we can still get an average of about 24 centimeters of snow in the Barrie area, about 10% of our annual total. So we're now into spring, and we'll just have to look at the crystal ball and see, well, what am I going to say about this one?
Is it a crystal ball or a dartboard?
Well, it could be a roulette wheel. It could be a paradise. Hey, it's something. We like to think it's the biggest computer in Canada, in Montreal. It turns out. But, even with all the bells and whistles, and Mother Nature holds the trump cards. It's really how she decides to do it. And I've been in this business 50 years, Dan, and so I've seen a lot of changes to the positive, the improvement. I probably, if I was in here 20 years ago, I'd say, well, I wouldn't bet the family farm or the fishing fleet or a loonie or two on it.
I've heard you say that.
Well, exactly. and for certain things, I do say that still. But, I think our seasonal forecasting is getting better. I think because we monitor the oceans better. And, of course, what we have seen in the last month or so, we've seen the death of La Nina, this cold water in the Pacific off Ecuador improve. My gosh, 9,000 kilometers away, but it still affects our kind of winters. And typically for the Ontario area, it produces the kind of winter we had, sort of a back and forth, up and down, maybe more storms, snowfall, and but it tends to be, cold periods and warm periods. But in this case, we were clearly into the southerly air, the American air, where out west it was pretty cold. And winter seemed to go on long. My gosh, there was one moment there where Victoria, Vancouver had more snow than Barrie. That's never happened before. So yeah, it is supercomputers, huge models, but people still think they're dartboards.
All right. All that said,
yeah.
What does that big computer in Montreal say about the spring?
Well, I think we're going to have to be patient. I think what we've seen in March, for example, I look at the forecast for the next few days and weeks particularly. The farther you look out, the more uncertainty there's going to be. When we issue the seasonal forecast, we're always more confident in that first month, a little less so in the second, and my gosh, it is really a crapshoot on that third month. But the season doesn't always behave in the same way from the beginning to the end, particularly in the spring, because you, as I mentioned, in order to get kind of the feel of the warm season, you need to get rid of the cold season. And often that's not the case when you when you're looking at seasonal forecast. One season doesn't give you a clue as to the next season, except going from winter to spring, because you have to get the ground, you have to get rid of the ice, and you have to get rid of the snow, and then any warm air that comes, it always does that first, so you don't feel the warmth. And finally, when all that, the sort of vestige of winter is over, well, then you finally warm up and buds start appearing and wildlife comes back. And so it's the rebirth period. So what we're saying is that, hey, it's not going to be a rush to spring. It's going to be kind of like maple syrup kind of conditions. +4 in the afternoon, -4 at night. So overall, what I would say is that from a temperature point of view, we're going to go sort of like March is going to be cooler than normal, when we still have a bit of time to go, another week or so to go, but I think it's not going to undo the kind of coolness at the beginning. But then all of a sudden we're going to see some of these days that do get up into the teens, you see. That's typically what March is like. You get a flow from the south, and you'll get still some Arctic air. So it's weather wars out there between the winter, the cold Arctic, and the warm south. And eventually, you get to the point where the south spins out. And so what we see is April's the cruel month. You want it to be over, but it's not. You see, you're getting those last bit of snow. My gosh, we've had in the last 2 or 3 years snow in May. I mean, it didn't last very long, but nevertheless, it was the white stuff. It wasn't apple blossoms. It was the white stuff that you had to push. And so my sense is that that's how spring is going to be. It won't be here as quickly as we wanted, but when it comes, it'll be fits and starts, and then finally we'll take off. And then, so my sense is, hey, be patient in March, early April, end of April, you begin to see more days or the frost or no freeze days. They stay warmer than normal. And then May looks quite glorious. And hey, I've looked at the summer forecast too, because, Canadians often, they don't care about the transition seasons. It's, well, winter was this, now what's summer going to be like, But, the transition seasons are important, and they play back and forth between those two core seasons. And we see the summer being warmer than normal.
Good chance he's right about that. He's been spot on over the past several seasons, though he wouldn't bet the farm on it. And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian, Will, MJ, and the Rock 95 morning crew for weighing in, to Matt Ladder for his expertise in pulling it all together, and to you for giving us a listen. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About. Rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Facebook and Twitter at Barrie360, and on our website, Barrie360.com. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.